Welcome into Club Football Weekly here on Radio DePaul Sports, the student voice of your DePaul Blue Demons, alongside head coach Carlos Jones at DePaul Club Football. I am Eli Herskovich. Carlos, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
And let's get into the loss from over the weekend. Your team traveled to Miami of Ohio. What were the ups and downs of the game?
Well, it was a bigger stage, playing in a Division I stadium, but pretty much the same thing as has been in the past. Just a short staff, the small roster really affected us. We've been hit by the injury bug lately, so we had to put some guys in some different positions and do some unconventional things on offense and defense to try to get something going. So we've just been fighting a lot of adversity lately.
Who were some of the big players that got hurt in the game and the players that had to sub in for them at those positions?
Well, Eddie Serrano, I believe it was around the second quarter, tweaked his ankle and knee and wasn't able to go. He was starting at quarterback and safety. That really hurt us. Then we had kind of a quarterback by committee with mostly Kevin Scripps came in and filled the shoes and actually did some pretty good things towards the fourth quarter.
Your defensive coordinator talked about this last week, that you just want your team to improve. It's really not about wins and losses in the first season. Did you see improvement on the field on Saturday?
Yeah, we see improvement every week. Miami of Ohio is the third-ranked team in the nation, and they had some struggles against us as well, especially their offense versus our defense. We made some plays. We forced some punts and some different things, and we got some sacks and stuff. So we did a lot of good things. It's just, we haven't been consistent enough.
Who were some of those consistent defensive players that showed up against that number 3 team in the nation in Miami of Ohio?
Riley Halligan did a pretty good job. Alex Smith, and some D-line guys, Davion Burks and Dan Block did really well against their offensive front.
Was it just the idea that your defensive line could not get to the quarterback? What was the biggest problem on defense that led to the Redhawks to scoring that many points?
Mistakes on offense particularly, and a few breakdowns on defense. But pretty much the same as it's been all year is mistakes on offense.
How many turnovers?
I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but not as many as in the following weeks or previous weeks. But punts.
Not getting the ball down the field enough.
Yeah, just not backing them up enough. And we don't have drives on offense. You got to punt the ball from deep in your territory. You're going to get a good field position.
Isn't that tough though when your starting quarterback to begin the season in Connor Skelly goes down with a concussion, then Serrano has the ankle injury? Now what's going to happen at the quarterback position?
We'll have to figure that out this weekend. Well, we're off this weekend. We have a bye, so we're going to practice on Saturday and Sunday. We're going to look at some different guys, and we're going to figure it out.
Who are some of those options that you're looking at quarterback? Anyone in particular?
Probably Kevin Scripps. We'll look at some other guys too, and kind of, see if we have any hidden gems in that department. But Kevin Scripps, he filled in, so we actually seen him in a game. And he actually surprised us, as he always does, because he's probably our second or third best player on the team. So, we might use a couple guys.
Were there any drives that really impressed you on offense? Those who were sustaining drives that got the ball down the field, even though there were no points put up on the board?
Yeah, we had a couple drives where we had 5 or 6 or 7 play drives. We ran the ball all over them, threw the ball on them. We had some drives where we did some really good things. Like I said, sometimes, a lot of these games, the score is not indicative of what happened. We make mistakes and you give them a short field, it's easier for them to score. They have a higher percentage. It's not necessarily that they just, we haven't been pounded yet. We haven't been, physically beaten up yet. We've beaten ourselves just by making silly mistakes and just, giving them opportunities. But there was a couple drives where, John Beal ran the ball really hard. He got a couple big runs, big tough runs. Kevin Scripps had a couple big, tough runs. We did some good things on them offensively and defensively. We just made the mistake and gave it right back.
Was it not running the ball too much, or was it passing too much? What was the biggest problem on offense? Or just turnovers?
I would would just say not taking advantage of opportunities. We'd get a big run, 10, 12 yards, and then snap over our head, or whoever was at quarterback or whatever would miss an open receiver, or and we had a couple turnovers, we had a couple interceptions, receivers not going up for the ball, just a bunch of different things, little intricate things that you have to do to be successful. We still haven't done.
What do you relate that to, the mistakes on offense? Is it practice time that's not getting put in? Are players not committing themselves to this football team?
There could be a bit of that, honestly. There could be some guys that are getting overwhelmed. I mean, I'm sure, like we'll talk later in the show, is it's difficult to play this sport. This is probably the hardest sport to play. It's not easy, and it's not for everybody. And I think some guys are realizing that not in the sense that they're going to quit, but maybe they have to rededicate themselves in the offseason and say, hey, this is a lot different animal than I thought it was. I got to better prepare. I got to learn more, because this is just not what I thought it to be.
How do you do that in the season? This year, how do you get your players to be committed, not in the offseason, but back into it this year, and just show their strength and maybe into the weight room a little bit more? What is the key this season?
I mean, well, at this point, the weight room, is not going to do you much good. I mean, it's, you could just use it as conditioning, but as far as strength training and stuff, that's over with until the off season.
Is that the biggest problem, the strength and conditioning, or what?
No,
what's that for players?
No, I think it's just the mental aspect. I mean, you got to be, this sport is 90% mental. If you can't think in this sport, you can't, overcome some, toughness, some adversity. The physical aspect is not going to help you at all. It's basically, the coaches just staying on guys and keep working with guys and letting them know that we're here. We're going to keep encouraging them and working with them, and to just, keep fighting and keep growing.
So why, you talk about the mental, that this game is 90% mental. Why do you think players aren't confident playing this game for DePaul Club football?
I didn't say our guys weren't confident. I'm just saying.
What are you talking about then with the mental aspect?
Well, you got to be able to, focus yourself in. You got to be able to, deal with in-game adjustments. Things are going to happen where, like an Eddie Serrano goes down. What do? You can't panic. You got to rise to the occasion. You got to play out of position. You got to do some different things. You got to make the plays when they're there. You can't, wait on anybody else. So that's a mental aspect of it. You can't, give up a big touchdown and have a letdown. That's not physical. That's mental.
Carlos, let's get to the roster aspect of this weekend and how that panned out. Only 19 active players going into the game. Did that limit the way you were able to prepare?
In a sense, even though we were short, had a short roster to begin with, we pretty much had the pieces that we needed, barring any injuries. So we went in with a decent game plan. We had the bodies that we needed, and we were doing well. We suffered, 2 key injuries, with Alex Koba going down, and then Eddie Serrano, who was at quarterback and safety. Those two really limited us, put us to 17 players.
Did that take a lot out of your team to see their starting quarterback go down and then still have to compete against the number 3 team in the country?
Honestly, in my opinion, I think they rallied around it. I mean, I think the defense played lights out. I mean, but like I said, when you shorthanded on offense and then on top of the mistakes, putting them back on the field a lot, that hurt us. But, I mean, if you see the film, man, there's a lot of flashes on TV. I mean, our defensive line really played probably the best game they played against the toughest opponent we've seen so far.
So that's the big improvement coming into that game was how well your defensive line played. I
think guys are just getting more comfortable. You have some guys that are still a little shaky and still trying to figure it out and, do some good things here and there. But I think overall they're starting to understand what it takes to play at this level. I mean, it's not just, cupcakes. Some guys may have thought that, it's club, so it's a club, and they got to understand this football, and you will get hit in the mouth repeatedly. You got to be able to weather it, and
especially against the tougher teams and the better teams in the country,
and teams that have had more years. Just Miami's been around for 7 years.
Who do you accredit to about this improvement on the defensive line the most? Anyone on the coaching staff in particular, or the players themselves?
I mean, all the coaches. I mean, even though we have our designated, coaches, I mean, we still encourage everybody. We still coach everybody. We still, point out things that we see. Of course, Adam and Tony Benson, those two are the defensive coaches. But yeah, they get all the credit. I mean, they've been working with these guys and adjusting and making a lot happen with not so much.
How important would it be for you to be able to add some impactful players on this roster?
Oh, it'd be huge. It'd be huge. I mean, we're recruiting every day. We're recruiting in the high schools and we're recruiting on campus. We still have 4 weeks, so if there's anybody who wants to play and has a desire to play and really wants to get into it, they can contact us and we'll be happy to have them and start them out this year and get them ready for next year.
How important is it for you to be recruiting in the Chicagoland area and say you have a chance to play for DePaul club football, a major school, and trying to establish himself in the club football ranks?
It's huge. There's a lot of good talent out here. There's some kids that we have our eyes on, and it would help us build the program. That's the only way we're going to survive is if we, start bringing kids in along with, campus. I mean, there's a lot of kids on this campus right now who have played football or can play football, and some of them, I won't say scared, but I think some of them are a little reserved about playing for whatever reason. I mean, it's football. It's not for everybody. You got to be tough, man. You got to be able to take it.
Let's get into that right now. You are listening to Club Football Weekly here on Radio DePaul Sports, the student voice of your DePaul Blue Demons. Head coach Carlos Jones in studio. I'm Eli Herskovich. Carlos, looking at the way that your team played, whether it was a couple of guys with nagging injuries, what is the difference between being hurt and being injured?
Well, being hurt is, when you can play through it. You're in this sport, if you're not hurt, if you don't have some kind of physical ailment, you're not playing, or you're not playing up to your, capability. I mean, that's what this sport is. It thrives on physicality and pure, just brute, strength. And, if you got a, sprained ankle, that you can play on, if it's not swollen, or, dislocated finger, stuff like that, football players play with. If you, bust your elbow up or something like that, I mean, you have to be able to play with injuries in this sport. That's just how it is. If you can go, if you can physically move, if you can physically do your job still, at least 60-70%, you can play. If you're hurt, if you're injured is like a torn ACL, concussion. Even guys with some broken bones, depending on how you can wrap it and club it, you can play with. But, when I played in college, late high school, early college, I played with a broken bone in my foot for 2 years. Ran track and football in 2 sports.
So what do you tell to your players then? Obviously, personal experience bodes well for them in that case.
The difference is there's some guys who are football players and there's some guys who want to play football, and it's learned. Like when you grow up playing football and like you go through it, you got some guys. This is not a knock on anybody or anybody in particular, but you got some guys who when they come into the sport, I played Pop Warner or I played freshman year only. That's a difference. It's the difference between a guy who's a career football player who played all 4 years of high school, was a starter. Even if you weren't a starter, there's a different mentality. And
how do you differentiate those kind of players? Whether, let's say there were 2 players who both played into their junior and senior seasons in high school, how do you separate the 2 of those? In terms of knowing the game, like you said, playing football and wanting to play football.
Well, I mean, that's the difference. The guys who have more experience understand what it is. They understand what it takes to play football. The guys who haven't played a lot of football or only played to me, if you play just freshman football in high school, you don't have football experience. You have to grow, and that's where it comes into play. Where we have guys on our team right now with busted up knees. John Measner, our best offensive lineman, has a busted up knee. That he's had since high school, and he's a sophomore in college right now, and he's still playing on it. He puts his brace on and he plays. He never comes out the game, never complains. He'll tweak it here and there, but he never comes out the game. He plays to full potential.
What do you say to players then who are going through injuries, but they could still be on the field? What do you say to those kinds of players, and how do you get them toughen up? Right, the hurt players. who are going through separate things.
We try to encourage them. We try to let them know, hey, you got a sprained ankle, you got a sprained wrist, your elbow's a little swollen. If you can still physically play, you need to play. Some of these guys, they haven't been through it, so they don't understand this is commonplace.
How much do you think that relates into the real life? When you say,
man, it's incredible. Like when you're at, I go to work sick a lot. I had the flu a couple weeks ago. I was super sick. And I work overnight, so
were your employees happy to be around you?
I work alone, so that helped. But you go to work and you can't just call off every day you're sick, or every day you have a crazy headache.
Right. Let's say you're on crutches, you still have to go to work.
Yeah,
potentially.
Depending on your job, you have to go. And that's in the real world. You can't just call off. And I think, like I said, it's learned. Guys have to understand that this is what it takes to play. If you're significantly injured, of course you can't play. But if you're hurt, you can still play. You still got to give it up for the team. That's a part of dedication and commitment. And if you can't handle that, then maybe this isn't the sport for you.
Do you think that's why a lot of players have left the roster, because they can't handle the toughness that football brings?
Some. I think some have. I think some joined the team and they thought it was something different. They hadn't really played a lot of football. They thought, and it was like, wow, this is, if Loyola hits us like this, and they're supposed to be the, low on the totem pole, what's going to happen. And, like I said, that's not knocking any individual. We're not, against anybody who quits, but you gotta understand that this is how it is, and you gotta know if you can handle it or not.
What kind of message do you send to players who are trying to walk on to this team and want to compete? As you said, the difference between wanting to play football and playing football. What do you need to tell them to be able to compete at this level?
No, make sure you know what you're getting into. This is not a club. This is not racquetball. This is not.
It's a physical sport.
Chess club. This is what you see on TV is what happens to you in the game. When you see a guy get flipped or ear-holed or knocked out, that can happen to you. This is a dangerous sport. You can die in this sport. You have to understand what you're getting into. This is not just flag football. I want to play recreation on Saturday. No, you have to dedicate yourself. You gotta be ready. You can't come into this sport not in shape, not ever being in the weight room. Not you gotta build your body for this sport. When you see a boxer training and they're dropping a medicine ball on his stomach from 6 feet, 10 feet away, that's not because he's trying to get abs or he's trying to show how tough he is. He's trying to build his body to weather body shots. So when he's on the ropes and they're knocking at his stomach, he can take it. He's not going to just go down. That's what that is. You got to build yourself up to handle this sport. Your body has to be conditioned to take a beating.
How much credit do you give to the players who have stuck along for this ride and have proven that they could play through these injuries?
Oh, I give them a lot of credit. And like I said, it's not like all of our guys are just going out and everything like that. There's a lot of guys who are playing with a lot of injury, a lot of bumps and bruises, a lot of I'd say hurts, not injuries, but injuries. Guys who I remember after the game, Devin Miller was walking around like an old man. Both his elbows were cut up and swollen. He had tape around him with blood dripping down and could barely walk. But he said, I wouldn't have it any other way. This is where I want to be. This is what I want. This is, I know I played 100%. I know I gave it up for the team.
Head coach Carlos Jones in the studio, coming off the 42-0 loss to Miami of Ohio over the weekend. A bye this weekend, and then number 1, Robert Morris. They will head to that school to play them next weekend. Coach, you mentioned earlier the mistakes that your team had on Saturday. Your defense is playing well. You're getting drives going, but then what are you missing to be able to sustain and finish off those drives on offense?
Just consistency. It goes back to the mental. You have a good drive, running the ball decently against a good team, moving the ball. Offensive line played great. Pass blocking was incredible, probably the best this year. I can't recall, but I don't think.
What happened?
We maybe only gave up 1 or 2 sacks this game.
What happened on the Serrano injury? How did he get that one? the ankle?
He dropped back. You know, it was a passing play. The blocking was good, but the middle was wide open, and Eddie's opportunistic. He saw it, and he darted up the middle about 12 yards, and he just got sandwiched between two guys. His ankle and knee, you know, kind of went funny, and that pretty much ended his day.
How did the referees call this game? Because you said how they literally sandwiched him, and you're probably looking at a 15-yard penalty in the NFL with the new rules this season. What happened there?
No. It was a clean hit. The referees were actually the best we had all year. They were pretty fair. They were
good to hear.
Straightforward. Yes, the best reffing crew I've had coaching in a long time. Actually, I think Miami had more penalties than we did. So it was pretty cool.
Is that a positive you take away from the game?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, that speaks well to our team, and that speaks well, you know, to the reffing crew. You know, their legitimacy. They did really well. They were, you know, really cool. We didn't have any issues with that. But the hit was clean. It was just a freak thing. You know, Eddie usually, you know, takes hits or runs people over and, you know, laughs about it. He had a big run earlier in the game where he ran through like two dudes and gave him the little Kaepernick or whatever, and you know, with the little muscle flexing, and that's usually what he does. But I mean, you know, nobody's, you know, immune to getting, you know, dinged up, you know, and I'm sure, you know, Eddie's trying to work to get back, you know. He's, you know, one of the tough guys on the team.
What do you say to your team coming up for the Robert Morris game? We'll get to the stadium itself in a second, but the quarterback play, is Eddie Serrano coming back here the next couple of weeks for that Robert Morris game?
I'm not sure. Not sure. I have to talk to him and see what his medical report is. I'm not 100% sure. If I had to guess, I would say maybe he might be out this week. But you know, next man up, we got to keep playing. And
the bull symbol, next man up, from a couple playoffs ago.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. I mean, right now we're not going to get another new 50 players or anything like that. We're going to, you know, ride or die with the guys we have, whether it's 19 or 30. We're going to go with that. I mean, we're going to still bring in people if we can. Try to get some of these injured guys. I know we got a few guys coming back. So we'll just, you know, we're not going to back down. We're going to still be here.
The players that are committed to this football team, is there a certain bond that they feel with one and another, and can you see that as a coach?
Yeah, you know, they hang out together, they watch film together, they do things together. You know, we were in a hotel this weekend, and, you know, we had, like, you know, dang near the whole team in one room watching football and stuff, you know. So they get along well, they feed off each other. We just got to do some better things on the field and just help ourselves out, because it's not, like I said, it wouldn't be as frustrating for me and the staff if teams were just physically whooping on us, like just beating us down because they were just so much better than us. But it's the exact opposite. Is, you know, we're our own worst enemy. Like, we just gotta stop shooting ourselves in the foot. Like, you can't have, you know, a 30-yard run and then snap the ball over your head 50 yards, or you know, drive the ball down the field, but then you have to punt and then get it blocked. You know, it's not one player. It's a breakdown on all aspects. The first kickoff of the game, we kicked the ball off to them. They returned it, you know, 40, 50 yards. Can't have that. Well, then we, I forgot what quarter it was, maybe the second quarter, Ivan Rojas had a 55-yard kick return. You know, that should put us in a good position to score some points.
Got to score off that opportunity.
But it didn't.
Which which aspect of the game is the biggest strength for you guys? Offense, defense, or special teams?
I'd say all of them. But if I had to pick one, the defense is playing the best. They're the healthiest, particularly, and you know, they're playing really well. But I mean, like, they've been on the field a lot. You know, offenses, you know, really struggle. But you know, at the end of the day, all of that's on me. You know, it's you know, the players got to play, my coaches got to coach, but at the end of the day, it falls on me. And I got to do a better job of getting the guys prepared and getting the roster together and, you know, getting the best out of everybody. And, you know, I take responsibility for it. I'm the head coach, so that's what my job entails.
Playing at Miami of Ohio, a stadium that has a D1 football team, what did that mean to yourself and the players who had that opportunity?
It was a great opportunity. You know, I'm from Ohio. Not too far from Oxford, so that was.
See any family over the weekend?
No, unfortunately I wasn't able to. I was a little bit away. Miami's in the country, so it's a little bit away from the city.
I'm proud that you do not live in the country, Tom.
Yeah.
You're a city guy.
Yeah, I'm a city guy. Small city guy, but city guy. But it was great, on the coaching perspective. The history of Miami, Ohio. I mean, I don't know how much you know about the cradle of coaches, but you have, coaches from, the early 1900s up until, most recently. There's a lot of great Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, that coached at Miami of Ohio. That's why they call it the cradle of coaches. They have, the sign of all and the statues of all the coaches. And to be a coach and, ultimately trying to get to the level of those guys, it was incredible. And then being from Ohio and knowing the history of it, and growing up around it, I played high school ball, on Miami of Ohio, in their stadium before. So
you had that experience
surreal.
before.
So it was pretty cool, to go back home,
What about for the players? How did they feel going into it?
I think it was really cool for them because, when you play club football, usually, it's like in the semi-pro, you play in, backyard fields or high school stadiums or rec stadiums or like, sports complexes that are just built for, rec leagues and peewee and all that kind of thing. And for those guys that have an opportunity to play in a Division I stadium, going to a Division I school, even though we don't have Division I football, a lot of guys, even if you go and play semi-pro, you don't get that opportunity to play in anything bigger than a high school field. They played on the Division I stadium. There's a decent amount of fans out there. We had some fans on our side, but mostly from Miami of Ohio. But it was a good atmosphere. I think they enjoyed it, and that's what it's about. They soaked it in. They felt like tourists and taking pictures and having fun. I'm still mad they only knew John Harbaugh versus all the other Hall of Fame coaches, but at least they knew him. But I think it was a good experience for them. I mean, that's something you'll never forget. Nobody can take it from them. I mean, they whatever you say, they played college ball and they played in the D1 stadium. No matter if it was club or D1 or D3, they played in the Division I stadium.
How proud of you are your team? You're talking about just being able to witness your team go into that stadium, just embrace it, sink it all in, and then go out and play a good football game. I know the result wasn't what you wanted it to be, but just to be able to see your team compete in that kind of environment.
Oh, I'm absolutely proud of them. I mean, these guys battled. When Eddie went down, nobody, pouted and quit. We put a receiver, a guy who never really played a lot of defense, John Nowak, at safety. He went in there and made a couple tackles. Guys didn't give up. We put Riley at receiver a couple times to block, and he had some good blocks. The guys kept playing. We had guys going down. We had guys, banged up, and where they had to, John Beal took a shot in the back. He had to come out a couple plays, and we was kind of worried about it. He can go, took a play off, went right back in. Got hit in the back again, went back in. Played on defense, went back in. Of course, when these guys were banged up, absolutely. I mean, they were hurting. I mean, 17 guys, and they had 40-something.
Was that a big advantage to be able to have a lot more on the opposing sideline for Miami of Ohio?
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, they can only play 11, and we play 11. So, I think the biggest advantage for them was the fact that a couple of our key guys were getting nicked up. But the guys, they fought, And one thing that I will say is that, from week 1 to week, 3 going into 4, the guys who are getting nicked up or whatever are feeling it, and they're weathering it. They're understanding that,
how to weather the storm.
I can play with this, I went down, my knee, kind of tweaked awkward. I'll be back in 2 plays. They're kind of understanding that, I can play through this. This is not that bad. I just need a little water, need a little break, a little stretch. I'm fine.
I know if I had a knee tweak and my mom heard that, she would freak out and not let me play football ever again.
Well, that's, when you come to college, man, and I'm going to say this for our current players and the players that are coming in, when you get banged up playing this sport, do not call your mom or dad. If you need to go to the
That's
doctor.
That's advice from me, I guess, if I ever played football.
Go to the doctor by yourself. Listen to the doctor, but you know what you can tolerate. If it's not broken or if it's not, going to interrupt your life in the long run, play. Or don't play football.
That's the big decision these players have to make.
Yeah, you have to be able to handle it. I mean, can you play with it? I mean, yes, you can. That's the same as if you go if you go play basketball at the Ray, and you twist your ankle, you can stop, because you're playing a pickup. You're not, it's not a team sport. You're not,
especially with the amount of players you have on that roster.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're playing pickup ball, it doesn't matter. You're not obligated to anybody. You're not sacrificed for anybody. You're playing pickup ball. The next guy is waiting to play. And when you're on a team, these guys are depending on you. It's, camaraderie. It's, it's a team.
Coach, going into this upcoming week against Robert Morris, next Saturday or Sunday for the students?
Saturday, 2 p.m.
Any way for the students to get out to the game?
We don't have any bus or anything for them. I mean, it's a 2-hour drive, and you just drive up. We'll have the details posted on our page. It's a short drive. Hopefully, see everybody out there.
Are you still selling the football shirts?
Yes, we still have football shirts available in various sizes. You can contact the DePaul Club football page, and we can get you one of those taken care of.
Get yourself a T-shirt and go support DePaul Club football. Coach, coming into this upcoming week against Robert Morris, what improvements do you need to see from your team, whether it's a win or a loss on the score sheet? What kind of things are you looking for this team to improve upon?
Just consistency, making the easy plays. Don't let the like I said, don't let the moment be too big. We know they're ranked and all that whoop-de-doo. I mean, these other teams have been ranked, and I'm not impressed. I'm more disappointed in the fact that we're letting these teams get the easy buckets, if you will. We're just giving them just
too many opportunities.
Too many easy opportunities. I mean, we're not making them work for it. And it makes them look good and us not look good. And at the end of the day, people don't care if you throw for 200 yards or if you rush for 1,000 yards in a season if you lose, and if you lose big. People don't care about stats. Did you win? That's what I get. All my text messages at the end of the game from family, friends, people from everywhere. Did you win? No. What was the score? They don't care about how many rushes did your running back have, how many passes did your receiver catch. They don't care. Did you win, and by how much, or how much did you lose by? That's all they care about.
If you have one message to say to your team this week, if you're in that locker room and you can only say one thing, what do you tell them?
Like one word or just one?
One sentence. I'll give you one sentence. Maybe a couple sentences if you want to stretch it out.
I'll say if you're able-bodied, if you can play, you play. And give it everything you got. No regrets. Put everything out in the field. Win, lose, or draw. Give it everything you had. Empty the tank.
That was a little bit more than one sentence, but I'll accept it, Coach.
All right.
What do you tell the specific players on offense to be able to continue drives? You stressed this during the break. Go out and make plays. What do you say to your offensive linemen to block for your quarterback himself, the wide receivers, the running backs? What's the most important message to those guys?
Do your job.
That's Tom Thibodeau-esque.
Do your job. That's it. Just do it. Do what we ask you to do. If we mess it up as coaches, we'll fix it. That's on us. Just do your job. Don't do anything more. Just be real vanilla and do your job.
And do you think your team has an opportunity to put up some points against Robert Morris?
We can beat any team on this schedule easily. But guys got to do it. They got to buy into it, and they got to want it. Because we've been in every game. And we, halftime scores and second half have shown it. And, moving the ball. We've moved the ball on every team. We've done some good things. We just keep killing ourselves. We keep making mistakes. And, we're a first-year team. We're going through a lot. Guys, haven't played in a while. So they're trying to figure out their bodies. Like, man, can I still handle this? Or, whoa, it's been like 6 years since I've been hit like that. Guys are trying to figure it out. We got some new guys who don't have a lot of experience. And the roster's a little low. Morale may be down a little bit just because, we're losing and, numbers are dwindling. Guys are dropping like flies in some regard. But it's the first year. We just got to, keep fighting, get through these next 4 games, keep battling, try to pull out a couple wins, preferably win out, which is still a possibility.
Is that the way you go about talking to your team, that you should not reflect on the negatives, of the game, just think positively about the next few weeks or next game.
I mean, like I said when I posted about our meetings and stuff for this week, we can still have a winning season. We can be 4-3 at the end of this thing. We have 4 more games. We can win out and be 4-3 and still win. That's not unrealistic. If you have 4 games, you can win 4 games.
What's the number one key to beating Robert Morris next Saturday?
Not make mistakes. Don't make mistakes.
Are you talking about your defense going on to making some tackles too?
Everybody. You can't make mistakes, offense, defense, or special teams. The team that makes the least amount of mistakes has the best chance of winning.
That's head coach Carlos Jones. I'm Eli Herskovich. Coach, any last words for the listeners?
If you're an interested player, we got 4 more weeks. We have a bye week this week. We're practicing Saturday and Sunday. It'll be posted to our page. If you're interested in playing, contact our page. We still got 4 weeks. There's a lot of football left.
A lot of time to win 4 football games.
Absolutely. I mean, we still need guys. We need guys for the remainder of this season and to build for the future. If we're going to keep this program together, we got to get some DePaul students that want to play.
That's head coach Carlos Jones. I'm Eli Herskovich. You have been listening to Club Football Weekly. The Sports Flash on the Radio DePaul Sports stream is up next with Hannah Pecorius and Ben Savage. Again, thanks for listening to Club Football Weekly on Radio DePaul Sports, the student voice of your DePaul Blue Demons.